Okay. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living in the Sakyan country at Kapilavatthu in Nigroda's park. Now on that occasion a new assembly hall had recently been built for the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu, and they had not yet been inhabited by any recluse or Brahmin or human being at all. When they built new assembly halls, they let the ascetics that were traveling around sleep the night there. So they just got through building this and nobody had gone in there after it was done. Then the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, sat down at one side and said to him, Venerable Sir, a new assembly hall has recently been built for the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu, and it has not yet been inhabited by any recluse or Brahmin or human being at all. Venerable Sir, let the Blessed One be the first to use it. When the Blessed One has used it first, then the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu will use it afterwards. That will lead to their welfare and happiness for a long time. The Blessed One consented in silence. Then, when they saw that he had consented, they got up from their seats, and after paying homage to him, keeping him on their right, they went to the assembly hall. They covered it completely with coverings and prepared seats. That's like they put rugs down and things like that. And then they put in a large water jug and hung an oil lamp. Then they went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, they stood at one side and said, Venerable Sir, the assembly hall has been covered completely with coverings and seats have been prepared. A large water jug has been put out and an oil lamp hung up. Now is the time for the Blessed One to do as he thinks fit. The Blessed One, dressed, taking his bowl and outer robe, went with the Sangha of monks to the assembly hall. The reason he took his bowl and outer robes was because he couldn't leave things, because people would steal them. They didn't have locks on their doors like we have now. When he arrived, he washed his feet, then entered the hall and sat down by the central pillar facing the east. It's an interesting thing about facing the east. There's an energetic thing that happens with the direction that you face. When you face the east, you have more energy. When you face the north, you don't have as much energy. So when facing the north, if you sleep with your head towards the north, you have better sleep because it's low energy. Now, if you have restlessness, then you can face the north and the restlessness comes down a little bit by itself. Or if you have sloth and torpor, then face the east. Figure it out for yourself. I don't have a compass. And the monks washed their feet, and they entered the hall and sat down by the western wall facing the east with the Blessed One before them. The Sakyans of Kapilavatthu washed their feet, entered the hall, and sat down by the eastern wall facing the west with the Blessed One before them. Then, when the Blessed One had instructed, roused, urged, and encouraged the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu on a talk on the Dhamma for much of the night. He said to Venerable Ānanda, Ānanda, speak to the Sakyans of Kapilavatthu about the discipline and higher training, who has entered upon the way. My back is uncomfortable, I will rest now. Okay, this statement right here says that this was during the latter part of the Buddha's life. His back started bothering him, so he wasn't able to sit up all night like he always had been, because his back became very painful. Now this gives you the impression that what he did was he laid down and went to sleep and let Ānanda give the discourse. But actually he laid down to give his back rest, but he was awake the whole time. Okay? Even as pure as the Buddha was, he still had some karmic effect of past actions, and that's why he had the bad back. In a lifetime, long time ago, more than 4 Mahakapas, which is a long time, he was a wrestler, and he got really proficient at breaking the men's backs that he was wrestling. He would lift them up and come down on the knee, and it would break their back. So he got this real bad back pain for that karma from a long time ago. Yes, Venerable Sir, Ānanda replied. Then the Blessed One prepared his patchwork cloak, folded in four, laid down on the right in the lion's pose. That's like the lying Buddha there, with one foot overlapping the other. Now this is the part that doesn't make sense, because he didn't go to sleep. He listened to what Ānanda said. It says that the Buddha lied in the lion's pose with one foot overlapping the other. And it says mindful and fully aware, after noting in his mind the time for rising. Now that implies that he went to sleep and he knew that he was going to wake up at a certain time, so he would get up. Now when you're right before you go to sleep, if you can make the determination to wake up at 4:59 or 5:01, change the time every day, but a little bit for the time of awakening. And then when you can hit that right on every time, now you're starting to learn how to use your determination. Yeah. And then there's another determination I want you to make right before you go to sleep. And that is, wake up smiling. Okay, then keep your smile going. Okay? Do that every night before you go to sleep. Make a determination what time you want to wake up, and that you're going to wake up happy. It works. Then the Venerable Ānanda addressed Mahanama, the Sakyan, thus, Mahanama, here a noble disciple is possessed of virtue, guards the doors of his sense faculties, is moderate in eating and devoted to wakefulness. He possesses 7 good qualities, and he is one who obtains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. The higher mind is called Abhidhamma. Okay. That's what it literally means. But here you're seeing that this Abhidhamma is talking about the virtue and sense doors and eating and wakefulness and things like that. It's not about Buddhist philosophy. This is about Buddhist reality. And how is a noble disciple possessed of virtue? Here a noble disciple is virtuous. He dwells restrained with the restraint of the Patimokkha. You have 8 precepts. I have 227. She has 311? Yeah.
227.
Yeah.
I have the enumerated
and she has 311. It's because she's a girl.
See?
And how does a noble disciple, wait a minute, keeping your precepts is extremely important. If you break one of the precepts, please come and tell me and we'll take the precepts again. If you break the precepts, it will affect your meditation very negatively for the whole day. So come and tell me. There's no finger pointing, we'll just take the precepts again and then you'll purify your mind so you can have good meditation after that. Okay, he is perfect in conduct and resort, and seeing fear in the slightest fault, he trains by the undertaking the training precepts. This is how the noble disciple is possessed of virtue. And how does a noble disciple guard the doors of his sense faculties? On seeing a form with the eye, a noble disciple does not grasp at its signs and features. Since if he left the eye faculty unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief might invade him. So what are we talking about by not grasping at its signs and features?
Staying with the object of meditation.
Staying with the object of meditation. And 6Ring if your mind becomes distracted. Now, when you forget and you get caught, what happens is you start thinking about what you're seeing or tasting or touching or whatever it happens to be at the sense doors. Then those thoughts start carrying you further and further away, and you don't even know that you're seeing or tasting or touching whatever the sense door is. And what that does is it causes unwholesome states to arise. Now, what are the unwholesome states? The unwholesome states are craving, taking the sight, the sound, taste, the touch personally. I am that. And then all of the opinions, the concepts, the ideas, the story about why you like or dislike that sight, sound, taste, touch, whatever it happens to be. And this causes your mind to have either covetousness, I like it, or grief, I don't like it. When you practice the 6 Rs, you practice recognizing that your mind is distracted, releasing the distraction, relaxing the tightness caused by that distraction, re-smiling, or smiling as the case may be. And return to your object of meditation and repeat staying with your object of meditation. So that is how you guard the doors of the sense faculties. He practices the way of its restraint. He guards the eye faculty. He undertakes the restraint of the eye faculty. On hearing a sound with the ear, on smelling an odor with the nose, on tasting a flavor with the tongue, on touching a tangible with the body, on cognizing a mind object with mind. A noble disciple does not grasp at its signs and features, since if he left the mind faculty unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief might invade him. He practices the way of its restraint. He guards the mind faculty, undertakes the restraint of the mind faculty. That is how a noble disciple guards the doors of his sense faculties. And how is a noble disciple moderate in eating? Here, reflecting wisely, a noble disciple takes food neither for amusement, nor for intoxication, nor for the sake of physical beauty and attractiveness, but only for the endurance and continuance of this body, for ending discomfort, for assisting the holy life, considering, thus I shall terminate old feelings without arousing new feelings, and I shall be healthy and blameless, and shall live in comfort. When we're talking about eating, we're talking about the quantity of food you need to eat. You have to learn how, especially when you're not eating in the evening, how to mix some of the hard food with the soft food. Now, what's hard food? Beans, nuts, sticky rice, things like that. Why is it considered hard? Because it stays in your stomach for a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. Soft food would be considered, a lot of the vegetables are soft food. Fruits are soft food, things like that. So you want to eat a balance of that so you won't get hungry in the evening. You want to eat until your stomach is half full. And then take 1/4 water and leave 1/4 air. And when you eat like that, then you won't bog yourself down. After eating, you'll find that there's a period of time that your mind just wants to sleep. I need to take some rest. But when you eat in this way without overeating, you'll stay alert. Okay? This is how a noble disciple is moderate in eating. And how is a noble disciple devoted to wakefulness here during the day while walking back and forth and sitting? A noble disciple purifies his mind of obstructive states. In the first watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive states. In the middle watch of the night, he lies down on the right side in the lion's pose with one foot overlapping the other, mindful and fully aware, after noting in his mind the time for rising. After rising in the third watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive states. The first watch of the night, according to the Burmese, is from 7 o'clock in the evening until 11 o'clock. The middle watch of the night, when you would lay down and take rest, is 11 o'clock until 3 o'clock. The last watch of the night is from 3 o'clock until 7 o'clock in the morning. As you notice, that's only 4 hours sleep. When I was in Burma, that's what I did. I went to bed at 11 o'clock, got up at 3 o'clock every morning. Then it got to be range retreat. And I went to my first interview at the range retreat with U Pandita. And he said, "How much are you sleeping?" And I said, "I go to bed 11 o'clock, get up at 3 o'clock. And he said, "Why are you sleeping so much?" Okay. So for 3 months, I went to bed at midnight and got up at 2 o'clock. And right at the end of the range retreat, this was the year that they had a lot of trouble in their country, and it was really kind of an entertaining time because they closed down the post office and they closed down the telephone office, and there was no food allowed into Rangoon, so we wound up only having rice for our meals because they had a big storehouse of rice. So it was kind of an interesting time, and you'd hear guns firing all the time, things like that. Anyway, right before the end of the range retreat, the government decided they didn't want any foreign monks in the country anymore. And the people that were running Mahasi Center went to the government and said, "Look, we can't let them go right now. They'd be breaking the Vinaya if they left before the end of the range retreat. So let them stay for the end of the range retreat." So we stayed for the end of the range retreat. It was on a Tuesday, and they said, "Wednesday morning you have to leave. Get on the plane and go." But they didn't have any planes leaving Wednesday morning. So the officials at Mahasi Center said, "There's no planes leaving," and the government said, "We don't care, they have to get out." I often wondered how we were supposed to do that, but finally they saw the sense of letting us stay one more day. When I got back into Thailand, I was exhausted. I'd only taken 2 hours sleep for 3 months. I found out that when you cut down on your sleep, you can eat huge quantities of food and lose weight. It takes a lot of energy to stay up. And I had a bowl, and I would have that full in the morning. And I would eat that, and I was still hungry, so they got another helping of that. And I ate all of that, and I got another helping of that. And then I felt like I'd had enough food. But I went from about 190 pounds down to about 160. I looked like a skeleton. My eyes were all sunken in. So when I went to Thailand, go out on alms round, come back in. Going on alms round in Thailand, I always had enough for 4 or 5 monks. They always gave me huge amounts of food. So I would eat until I was full, and then I'd start thinking, oh, that might be nice to take a nap. And then I'd lay down and I'd take a nap, and I'd wake up about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'd wander around and get a tea and talk to some monks, and then about 7 o'clock I'd start thinking, well, it's about time to go to bed. And that happened for about 6 weeks. So I finally caught up on my sleep, and then I started feeling like a normal person, and I started gaining weight and things like that. So do I recommend that you only take 2 hours sleep a night? No. Look at how soft I am. You get to go to bed at 10 o'clock. You get up at 5 o'clock. That's 7 hours. And then after lunch, I give you an hour after lunch. So you can lay down and take rest for an hour after lunch. That's 8 hours a day. This is a walk in the park. This is really easy on you because you're not used to having a little amount of sleep, and I don't want you pushing. I don't want you walking around being tired. I learned through my experience at Mahasi Center that you don't get very good meditation when you do that. And your mind has a tendency to get real grumpy. And we don't want that. So I make sure you have enough sleep. And you have great food here. Every time you have your choice, if you want some beans, some hard food, or they always have some nuts around, they have all kinds of good food. Now, if you get hungry in the evening, at tea time, take a little bit of honey in your tea, and that will help. Okay? Now, what I want you to do while you're here doing the retreat is I want you to stay in the meditation hall until 10 o'clock at night. Not 9 o'clock, not 8:30, not 9:30, 10 o'clock. Okay? And this is for your benefit. Now, I want everyone to sit at least 6 hours a day. That's not really very much. And when I was taking 2 hours of sleep, I was sitting and walking 16 hours a day. I'm only asking you to do 6 sitting. And the walking, it depends on you on how much you want to walk, but always walk in between each sitting. Staying with your object of meditation, of course, as much as you can. Okay? Now, how do you purify your mind of obstructive states? You're getting smart. Excellent. By using the 6 R's, watching what you're doing when you're walking back and forth and when you're sitting. Watch what your mind is doing. Your mind starts to wander off. Don't criticize yourself. Don't become upset with yourself. Just 6R it. And then gently stay with your object of meditation as long as you can remember. So that is how a noble disciple is devoted to wakefulness, by practicing the 6 R's. And how does a noble disciple possess 7 good qualities? Here, a noble disciple has confidence, and he places his confidence in the Tathagata's awakening thus. The Blessed One is accomplished, fully enlightened, fully awakened, perfect in true knowledge and conduct. sublime, knower of worlds, incomparable leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, awakened and blessed. He has shame. He is ashamed of misconduct in body, speech, and mind, ashamed of engaging in evil, unwholesome deeds. What are evil, unwholesome deeds?
Breaking the precepts.
Huh?
Breaking the precepts.
Yeah. We're getting involved with the hindrances, taking them personally. Now the word shame is a little bit heavy. You want to be able to recognize that, okay, I made a mistake. Let it go. If you hold on to shame too much, then your mind gets into unwholesome states by identifying with the critical thought that you're creating for yourself. And we don't want that to happen. We want you to keep your mind pointed towards the wholesome, not the unwholesomeness of feeling like you've done something really bad. It's just recognizing that there's a mistake, letting it go, relaxing, smiling, coming back to your object of meditation. He has fear of wrongdoing. He's afraid of misconduct in body, speech, and mind, afraid of engaging in evil, unwholesome deeds. Well, again, the fear of wrongdoing, it means caution and paying attention to not practicing any wrongdoing. What is wrongdoing? Getting involved with your precepts, breaking your precepts, getting involved with your hindrances. Now, for a monk, it's a little bit different than it is for laymen, because you've only got 8 precepts and we got whole bunches more. And being a monk, this is our profession. So we're a little bit more critical of our action because we have rules that dictate what kind of actions we can do. And we try to pay attention to that as much as we can. And of course there's always some degrees of some of the things. There's a Dhutanga practice where you only will take 3 postures. Posture of standing, sitting. One is the most strict, is sitting in the middle of the room, sitting in meditation and resting without bending over, just sitting. You wind up catching little cat naps that way. It's a very difficult practice. When I was in Thailand, I saw monks trying to do that practice, and what they wound up doing was just leaning forward and putting their head on the ground and sleeping, and then they'd wind up with a bad back. So it's not a wise thing to do if you're not really ready for that with your meditation. The next degree of that is sitting and leaning against a wall. That's a hard practice to do too. The last degree is sitting in a chair. So you have these 3 kinds of different degrees of following that particular practice. Some of the rules are, it's much more strict. You don't have 3 different degrees of it, but other rules, it depends. Anyway. not getting overly involved with the fear of wrongdoing, but being aware of when you're going to do something that's maybe a little bit marginal. This is one of the reasons why you take the precepts every morning, not as a rite and ritual, but to keep it in your mind, so you won't be tempted before there is a breaking of the rule. The reason that you keep the precepts is because it helps you generally be mindful of what you're going to do before you do it. And then you make the conscious decision, no, that's better not to do that.
Excuse me, the Tutanga?
Dutanga.
Did Buddha encourage monks to do so?
There's 13 Dutanga practices. One of them is only eating out of the bowl. Whatever is put in the bowl, that's what you eat. I was with somebody in Burma when they did that, and what we did was we went out on alms round, and if we knew that this particular monk liked a kind of food, what we would do would be put it in his bowl for him. But he only ate what was put in his bowl. Now there's an advantage to eating out of your bowl all of the time, because you when your bowl gets up to a certain level, you know that's as much food as you need. And it's real easy not to overeat that way. Another practice is only having 3 robes. Another practice is outside of range retreat, never going into a building, staying at the root of a tree. One of the practices is staying out in the open, which means that what you do is you take your robe and a little wooden thing and you build a little tent, and that's where you will do your meditation and that sort of thing. Oh, what are the others?
Are these options?
Walking.
Huh?
Is it walking everywhere? Like what? Like the law?
Well, that's not a Dutanga practice.
Are these options? I mean,
Yeah, you can do them. Monks can do them if they want a little bit of extra discipline.
When
was there sort of pressure to do some of these things and some of these?
Depends where you are and who you're with.
Because I remember that
Some of the
Tangpulu.
Tangpulu monks, they
Yeah.
because Tangpulu Sayadaw never laid down since he became a monk. And when did he die? He was 97 or something like that. So for 77 years, he never laid down all the way.
did you say 1 meal a day was? Just 1 meal a day?
Taking 1 meal a day, yeah.
Are these described in the text?
You're gonna love this answer. The best description of them actually is in the Visuddhimagga. That's why the Visuddhimagga is a reference book. The first part of the Visuddhimagga on virtue is actually very good. And it describes all 13 of the Dutanga practices. Of which I can't remember all of them right now, so I'm not going to go into them anymore. But I have practiced Dutanga practices, and I found benefit for that in doing that, because you start losing your attachments. Only eating 1 meal a day, only eating out of your own bowl, and whatever is put into your bowl. That stops you from going, oh, that looks good. Even this might be offered, but if it's not in your bowl, then you just let it go. The Burmese monks were very good at trying to tempt me to eat more. I'd eat, I didn't want any more, and then they would find out that I liked lepet. Lepet is pickled or fermented? Is it fermented or pickled?
Pickle.
Pickled tea. And it has kind of a sour taste, and I kind of like it. And they always have some little nuts with them, and it's a good thing. But they would wait until I was done, and then we would put it in my bowl. And then they were always looking at me very closely to see whether I would pull it out and eat it. But no, I wouldn't pull it out and eat it. I was done eating. That was enough.
One of the reasons, that is kind of like a delicacy.
Oh, it's definitely a delicacy. It's wonderful. But that's one of the reasons that the Burmese will not drink tea in the evening, because they consider it a food. But when you make tea and boil it, it has no calories in it, so it's not a food at that time. But there's different degrees of strictness in that too. So. He has learned much, remembers what he has learned, and consolidates what he has learned. Such teachings as are good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, with the right meaning and phrasing, and affirm a holy life that is utterly perfect and pure. Such teachings as these he has learned much of, remembered, recited verbally, investigated with mind, and penetrated well by view. Now, the whole point of chanting is not mystical, magical feeling. It's reciting over and over again what the suttas say. But over the years, they've developed these certain suttas that they call the paritas. They're the protections. Now, an example of a protection, I just read about the Buddha being awakened and fully enlightened and perfect in conduct and wisdom and things like that. If you have fear in your mind and you reflect on the good qualities of the Buddha, the fear dissipates. It stops. Now, I've had some students that came and they tried to practice meditation, and they couldn't close their eyes when they meditated because it caused fear to arise. And their mind was very agitated when they started practicing. So what I would do would be tell them, I want you to go over the good qualities of the Buddha and reflect on what each of those qualities are. There's 9 different qualities. And after that, start your meditation. And that always was helpful. Sometimes the fear can arise because of past action in another lifetime. We don't know. It doesn't really matter why it arises. What matters is what you do with it when it does arise. And this is very helpful when you think of the good qualities of the Buddha. Now, this is considered a protection. So the monks, they like to do the chanting of the protections in the morning. And that's about the only thing they actually chant anymore. Just the protections. But all of the suttas, to keep them alive, they should be chanted. And when you go to the Digha Nikaya, you get a real feel for what needed to be kept alive after the Buddha died. In Sutta number 33, I think it is, there's a list of ones, and a list of twos, and a list of threes, and a list of fours, and it's talking about all of the different things that the Buddha taught. It goes all the way up to 12s. That's why they call it the longer discourse. Well, do you know the right meaning and phrasing? Okay. Such teachings as these he has learned much of, remembered, recited, verbally investigated, and penetrated by view. I'm only giving you a few suttas to memorize. That's for people that want to become teachers. I'll give you the list if you want. But it's only 4 or 5 suttas.
7 so far.
7.
On the list. But they're not that, they're not good things.
There's enough repeating in them that it's actually fairly easy to memorize. And the reason that you want to memorize them if you're a teacher is so that you can call them up. Oh, it says this in this sutta about that. You don't have to spend time looking it up. Okay. He is energetic in abandoning unwholesome states and in undertaking wholesome states. What does that mean? He's energetic when he's practicing the 6 R's. In other words, he's very observant. The 6 R's are the key that opens the door to Nibbana. And it opens the door every time you use them. Because you let go of your craving. Every time you let go of craving, you let go of your attachment to a belief in a personal self. He is steadfast and firm in striving, not remiss in developing wholesome states. Letting go of unwholesome states, releasing them, relaxing, re-smiling, returning, repeating, staying with that wholesome state, staying with your object of meditation. Smiling. He has mindfulness. He possesses the highest mindfulness and skill. He recalls and recollects what was done long ago and spoken of long ago. In other words, we're talking not about mindfulness necessarily, but about your memory. You repeat things often enough that you can remember them without making mistakes. And I wish I could do that. Sometimes it'd be real helpful. He is wise. Now, you remember what I said about the word wise or wisdom? It's always talking about dependent origination. When he is wise, that means he is able to see how at least part of the links of dependent origination really do work. He possesses wisdom. And this is part from the commentary. He's the reason that he's talking about here, he possesses wisdom regarding arise and disappearance. This is one of the reasons that I'm going through this book, taking out the commentary in the sutta and putting it where the commentary should be.
Right. Section.
17.
Thank you.
That is noble and penetrative and leads to the complete destruction of craving. What leads to the complete destruction of craving? You know the answer, don't you? What leads to the complete destruction of craving?
Knowledge of dependent origination.
And where to let go. And how to reduce it out. And
6 R's.
6 R's, yes. It's real easy.
6
yeah,
R's.
but
Yeah.
you can 6R and you can let go of the clinging and not have let go of the craving, or you can
No,
let go
you
of
can't
something.
you can't have any craving if you 6R because you're letting it go.
That's true.
That is how a noble disciple possesses 7 good qualities. And how is a noble disciple one who obtains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind and provide a pleasant abiding here and now? Here, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states. A noble disciple enters upon and abides in the first jhana. The kind of jhana that we're talking about is not the absorbed kind of jhana. We're talking about twim.
Here.
Tranquil, wisdom, insight, meditation. Twim. We're going to make that a household word.
Yeah, not like
How can they have all those dot leaders in there? From the first jhana to the second jhana?
Well, I'm going to take those dots out right directly.
Hot dog.
Because we didn't want to repeat it because the book is too big by itself.
Oh, I see.
See, this book was actually 3 books by the Polytech Society. And he put it all into one, so it makes you carry around a book that weighs 5 pounds, which gets you in trouble with the airport.
Jeez.
Okay, here quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome state. A noble disciple enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thinking and examining thought, with joy and happiness born of seclusion.
Is that 111?
Yeah.
and it doesn't
Yeah.
have a place.
Again, with the stilling of thinking and examining thought, a noble disciple enters upon and abides in the second jhana, which has self-confidence and stillness of mind, without thinking and examining thought, with joy and pleasure born of collectedness. When you get into the second jhana, you start to have a confidence that you know what you're doing. And that carries on into your daily activities. You start to have more confidence that you can use the 6 R's with your daily activity, and it actually does work. You start to have confidence that you smile more and your mind stays uplifted more. You start to have a lot of self-confidence with this. Okay, with the fading away of joy. A A noble disciple abides in equanimity, mindful and fully aware, still feeling pleasure with the body. In other words, when you get into the third jhana, you very much feel the body, but it's comfortable. As you go deeper into the third jhana, then you start losing feeling in different parts of your body. As you lose tension in your mind, you lose tension in your body. When you lose tension in your body, you don't feel it anymore. Okay, he enters upon and abides in the third jhana, on account of which noble ones announce he has a pleasant abiding, who has equanimity and is mindful. Again, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, with the previous disappearance of joy and grief. The noble disciple enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. When you get into the fourth jhana, the abandoning of pleasure and pain means that your mind doesn't shake. Your mind doesn't move, your mind stays balanced unless you get involved with the dissatisfaction of having a pain arise. Okay. That is how a noble disciple is one who attains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the four jhanas that constitute the higher mind, and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. When a noble disciple is thus become one who is possessed of virtue, who guards the doors of his sense faculties, who is moderate in eating. Oh, another thing, when you're eating, the more you chew your food, the easier it is to digest. When the text that talks about the Buddha eating food, it says that he never swallowed one grain of rice that wasn't chewed at least once. When you chew your food until it becomes liquid in your mouth and then you swallow it, your digestion is very good because the saliva hits all of the food, and that's the first part of the digestion. And you start feeling a lot more healthy when you chew your food. A lot of people that are overweight, when they eat, they pop the food in their mouth, they chew twice and swallow. And it takes a huge amount of energy for your body to start digesting that. So while you're eating here, please eat until the food becomes liquid in your mouth. That'll slow down everybody eating a little bit too. When I was taking care of Venerable Lucille Ānanda in Burma, people would come and they would offer food, and then he would eat, get up, and whatever food was left, we would start eating. And there's two doctors, a man and his wife. They were both medical doctors. They would, from the time they sat down until they got up from eating, was about 3 minutes. And in 3 minutes I can have a couple bites. And I'm sitting there eating, and they're looking at me going, oh, I wish I could do that. Try chewing your food sometime and see how it does. Okay, a noble disciple is one who is devoted to wakefulness, who possesses the 7 good qualities, who attains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind, and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. He is called one in higher training who has entered upon the way. His eggs are unspoiled. He is capable of breaking out, capable of awakening, capable of attaining the supreme security from bondage. Suppose there were a hen with 8 or 10 or 12 eggs, which she covered, incubated, nurtured properly. Even though she did not wish, oh, that my chicks may pierce the shells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatched out safely, yet the chicks are capable of piercing their shells with the points of their claws, beaks, and hatching out safely. So too, when a noble disciple has become one who is possessed of virtue, and is called one in higher training, who has entered upon the way, his eggs are unspoiled. He is capable of breaking out, capable of awakening, capable of attaining the supreme security from bondage. Having arrived at that same supreme mindfulness, whose purity is due to equanimity, this noble disciple recollects his manifold past lifetimes. When his collected mind is thus purified, bright and unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, this means that the person has attained the 4th jhana. Okay? And when you can get into the 4th jhana, that is when you become an advanced meditator. Why? Because your mind is thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfections, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability. That's why.